Hello and welcome to the Church of the Air. I'm your guest host, Pastor Kevin Wing from Lockport Christian Church. We meet at the corner of Ham Road and Locust Street in Lockport. Our church times are Sunday at 10 a.m. We have a youth service on Wednesday nights at 7 p.m. We have a growing congregation there. We'd love to have you come out if you're looking for a church home in the Lockport area, or if you're just visiting and would like to visit with us. But today's episode of the Church of the Air, we have a very, very special guest with us, Reverend Gene Coplin, and Gene is overseeing Project L.E.E., which I'm going to have him tell you about in just a second. But I want you to welcome with me Reverend Gene Coplin from Project L.E.E. Gene, it's great to have you on the program with us today.
Good to be here, Kevin, Pastor Kevin.
We met a while ago, but that was some time ago, and back then I think you were involved in another ministry at the time, the urban Christian ministry.
Correct.
And this kind of sounds like it kind of sprung out of that a little bit, but tell us a little bit about Project L.E.E., maybe what the acronym stands for and how you got started in it.
Project L.E.E. acronym stands for Learning and Earning Experiences. And it's an attitude development program where I teach in, actually I started, Kevin, in prisons. And we were so successful teaching, here it is, attitude development from a biblical perspective.
Okay.
In schools we're teaching attitude development, motivational leadership. But the program actually started, as I forestated, from prisons. We started back in 1980 working with Urban Christian Ministries in Windy, State Facility, Erie County Correctional Facility, Collins Facility, prison rather, and we were so successful with changing the attitudes, the mindsets of inmates, because we did something very unique. We worked with them while they were incarcerated on a weekly basis. We actually brought students in to talk with the inmates also. In other words, students that I thought were on the peripheral, maybe they could go either way. They would come in, talk with the inmates. The inmates would share with the students the insidious side of crime and prison life in hopes to deter them from making the same mistakes. Now, what it did for the inmates was they still felt like they were doing something positive for society while they were yet incarcerated. When they got out, we had a program for them on a weekly basis, and it was so successful. 91% of the inmates we worked with once they got out did not go back to prison.
Wow.
We thought that was phenomenal. So then the Lord began to show me what we need to do is keep the prison ministry going, but we need to develop a ministry where we're reaching young people before they go to prison.
Yeah, that's a great point, because that way you can you can shut that door before they even enter into prison life, which is going to change them forever.
Exactly.
When they get into that kind of a scenario. Isn't that true?
Exactly. And so that's where Project L.E.E. started. I kind of thought the Lord wanted me specifically to work with churches. So I started there, but it wasn't gelling. And he spoke very clearly, no, I want you in schools. Well, I'm a minister, Lord. How am I going to get in schools? But lo and behold, he opened doors for us to go into, and we are now currently in about 12 or 13 different public schools, Buffalo, Niagara Falls, Sweet Home, Cheektowaga, and it's really proliferated because our message is attitude development, changing attitudes. We go into public schools, we guarantee two things. First of all, I ask the teachers or the principals, give me your most at-risk students. Male, female, black, white, doesn't matter, okay?
Right.
Our job is, once I get that student or a group of students, it could be anywhere from a group of 6 to we've had as many as 40 in a group. And what we do, we guarantee this. You will see a change of attitude, negative leadership to positive leadership, and you will see an increase in the grade point average.
Is it true then that the kids that you're working with then, are they coming from environments where the attitudes are bad, where they maybe feel like they're being victims or victimized, and maybe they've gone through some tough stuff, but does the environment that they grew up in then kind of determine their attitudes, and that's why they maybe get stuck where they're at?
Well, yes and no. The environment they grow up in does have a lot to do with their determining their attitudes.
Okay.
Our job is to get them to understand that, and I've often said this here, Pastor Kevin, that your attitude or your life, as far as your life, okay, your success or failure does not depend on what happens to you in life, because negative things, Pastor, happens to us all.
Yeah, exactly.
But rather, your success or failure depends on how you respond to what happens to you.
Yeah,
That's attitude.
There you go.
And so getting them to understand that That's one of the first principles given to understand. And now we work on, from that point, changing the way they think about themselves, the way they feel about themselves,
Okay.
the way they see themselves. And that's critical.
Yeah.
So everything we do has to do with nothing but attitude. Once my attitude has changed the way I feel about me, the most important person in the world, then it impacts my whole world.
There's a Bible passage that comes to my mind as you're sharing from Proverbs, and it says, as a man thinks in his heart, so is he. So it kind of talks a little bit about who you think you are on the inside. Is that where you're going with this? That basically if you can reach that inner man, so to speak, and get him to think differently, then his life is going to be differently.
That is so true. Think about it like this. From a Christian perspective, as being a pastor or ministers, we know the importance of being born again.
Yeah.
We know the importance of being spirit-filled. But even after being born again, even after being spirit-filled, Paul talks about in Romans 12:1 and 2, we must be transformed by the renewing of our mind.
Yeah, yeah.
A lot of times, even as Christians, I may wind up as a failure in life because my mind is not transformed.
Okay.
And that's what we do in these schools. We literally transform the thinking of my students. Let me give you an example. I may say something, and we may do this on a regular basis because the power of words is so important. So we go through this thing.
Excuse me, not only words that you might say, but words that are said to you then as well, right?
Bingo.
Okay, all right.
Right. Words that I say to me and words that are said to me.
Yeah.
Now, even though negative words are said to me, if I don't deal with that, it could still have me on a negative spiral going down. So one of the things I teach my students is what I call power words of life. And just give you an example. One of the things I share with them is I'll have them all standing, and they'll repeat after me something like this. I'm not a whiner, I'm a winner. I'm not a mess, I'm a success. I'm not a chump, I'm a champion. I'm not a hater, I'm a creator. I'm not ordinary.
Ooh.
I'm extraordinary.
There you go.
I'm a winner, not a loser, a leader, not an abuser. I will make my mama proud, not loud. I'll make my teacher glad, not sad, because my new attitude is I'm happy, I'm not snappy. Why should I settle for less when I can have the best? But here's my secret. But to get the best, I must give my best. And I'm determined to give my best in a day, every day, one day at a time.
Wow, you're changing me right here, sitting over here. That's great, Gene. That's awesome. That's a wonderful thing. And just in a second, because we want to introduce a video clip in just a second. But what was it that drove you to this? I mean, it is in a couple seconds. Why'd you go down this path? Was it something you struggled with as a young person?
Well, I think it's something that a lot of us struggle as young people, coming out of the hood, inner city of Buffalo. I just struggled with self-esteem. But the thing that really drove me, gave me a passion to do what I'm doing, as I became a Christian, as I became born again, I got tired of hearing about the shootings, the killings, the pregnancy, the drugs, and opposed to being called to do what you're doing, pastoring. I believe the Lord's called me to teach attitude development in public schools. I do it in schools, I do it in churches, I do it in group settings. I get called as a motivational speaker, but that's my passion, to change the mindset. If I can change the way you feel about who you are, okay, if I can take you from a failure to a success in your thinking, letting you know you can, you will, you shall, you must, you got to, and you're going to make it. If I change your attitude, you know what happens? Your grade point averages go up. Okay?
Yeah.
Your attitude changes. You even begin to change the people you hang out with. The Bible talks about he that walks with wise men, Proverbs 13:20, shall be wise, but a companion of fools shall be destroyed.
Yeah.
So getting them to understand my mindset has changed about who I am, and then I have to change my peer group association in order to be successful in life.
So you don't just deal with the attitudes, you might deal with some of the people they're hanging around with as well.
Right, because the people you're hanging around with can, in fact, impact your attitude in a negative way.
That's a great point. Hey, tell us a little bit about, we're going to watch a video clip in just a second. Tell us about what we're going to see in this video that we're going to see in just a second.